Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Upside Swings NBA Draft Podcast, the podcast, the highest ceiling. I'm your host, Bryce Hendricks, joined as always by the great Cooper Klein and the wonderful Stone Hansen, and we're doing the classic off-season content machine. We're going to redraft. A lot of people are doing redrafts. I can't claim that we had some original idea or anything. I mean, redrafts have been going on for as long as the draft process has been going on. I hope we can bring a unique perspective and some unique ideas. The truth is, there is a lot less subjectivity when looking back at careers than there is when trying to project them for obvious reasons. There will still probably be some moments where we disagree, but it's probably going to happen less. But the reason I wanted to do this exercise is I haven't for a long time gone back and done like a holistic look at like a long stretch of time. And we're going back a decade. We're going to hopefully we can get through all 9 drafts. Obviously, a 2024 redraft would look very different than a 2015 redraft in terms of our stance on things and how we have to project versus reflect. But what I find to be really interesting about this is I wanted to challenge my own preconceived notions of how we talk about the draft. We talk about this person's going to have a 10-year career, or this person's going to get a second contract, or there's only 20 rotation players at any given draft. And so what I really would like to do is I would like to, as we go through this, spend a lot of time personally breaking down some macro things as we're talking about the micro. This is who I think the best player from this draft is. This is why, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But before we get too into it, Coop, Stone, my friends, it's great to see you. How you guys doing?
I'm doing well. I'm pretty busy, but I'm excited to take some time out and talk hoops because it's been a while. So, it's good to be back. And, hopefully this is more of a fun podcast that I know, at least on the back end, we didn't have to put a lot of work into, which is nice. So I think we'll all enjoy it a bit more.
Even us, the biggest nerds in the whole world, get to enjoy ourselves sometimes. We get to have fun doing this. I mean, we always have fun on our pod, but we get to do some less intellectual type stuff. I mean, we'll still make it intellectual because that's how we are. We'll try to show off our vocabulary and our big brains.
The syntax.
Yeah, the perforations and everything like that. But this is really fun. Did we do the 2015 pod last offseason, you and I, Bryce?
I want to say it was last offseason that we talked about the bigs from the 2015 draft. And that's a big reason why I wanted to start with this draft, because I feel like I had a shocking amount of context for a draft that happened when I was 13 years old. I had a blast doing that pod, Coop, and I feel like that is one of those things that has really stuck with me. And so I found this to be a really fun exercise in that way, in terms of that was very much focused on their prospectum. And this is obviously not really. I mean, it will be in some ways, but there's only so much to say about these guys as prospects at this point. They've flamed out or they haven't. But I did take some interesting notes just on a macro level. So this draft produced 2 All-NBA players. I'm sure you know who they are. If not, they will get picked very shortly. 2 other players got all-star consideration. I don't count all-stars. Like, I think they're kind of a fake thing. Like, there's injury replacements on the all-star team. There's no injury replacements on an All-NBA team. It's only half a season. You're going to get way more fluke all-stars. You get very, very few like fluke All-NBA guys. So I think that's important. There's, I would say, 2 guys that you would say are have had actually kind of like borderline all-star careers. And then we have up to a total of 8 guys. Only 4 guys I would say are solid starters, but if you count those other 2 guys I've talked about, that you would say have been like starters, like true starters in the league. And then pretty quickly you get into these bench guys. Now, for what it's worth, there's still 21 players playing in the NBA right now. in various levels of fringe. There's 35 players that ended up playing past their rookie contract, right? In one way or another, getting five or right around 5, years in the league. There's some really interesting stories in there that we'll probably end up talking about. And then there is 9 guys that were drafted in the first round that I would say are straight up busts. So 21 first rounders have had some sort of solid career, even if they're disappointing. 9 first rounders that just like completely flamed out very quickly. There's certain guys you might call bust based on their draft position, but we will define bust as like didn't even reach their second contract. One of the guys that I have in the bust category literally never came over to the NBA, like just like completely, flamed out entirely. So I thought those were interesting. We sometimes you hear the truism of 20 players in every draft. I think it's interesting that 21 players are still in the league. This will be the 9th season for these guys. These guys will be entering their 9th season. I think when it comes time to getting to year 10, I bet at least 2 more of these guys fall out, and we actually have less than 20 10+ year players. But you would also say like 35 guys having 5 or so year careers is maybe a little bit higher than I expected. So I found those to be really interesting. Coop, this was a really easy decision to give you the first overall pick. So let's hear it. You're on the clock here at 1. Who are you taking?
Yeah, there is. I do think that there's a debate, even if it was really easy for me. I'm really high on both of the guys who would be in consideration here. The actual number 1 overall pick, and then the guy that I'm going to take, I'm going to go with Devin Booker here at pick 1. Booker was super young as a prospect, and he was just kind of like a bench shooter. And, he just had outlier athleticism in a lot of weird ways. He wasn't this crazy run and jump guy, but his balance was superhuman. He always knew how to get to his shot. I won't say that he was basically the OG Con Knipple, but I will say that there's a lot of similarities between the two in terms of just feel and pure shooting. Booker's career has been pretty crazy, just like consistent year over year growth. He had an off year this last season because of injury and because the Suns roster construction is some of the worst in the league and has been since they traded Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges. But he can legitimately play either guard spot. He's a decent defender. I think he's a cog in the machine, decent 4th defender on a team, which for your offensive superstar is pretty good. And he's the guy in the league other than Kevin Durant that every single time he shoots the ball, I'm like, that's going in. His jumper's beautiful. He can hit it from anywhere. He's so strong. He has such great balance. I really wanted to take Cat here, just in my heart of hearts. I wanted to take the greatest big man shooter of all time. But Booker's just better. Booker's the better player. He's been to the finals. I wish they had won that finals. And I can't wait for him to get out of Phoenix.
Giannis hater. No, I mean, I think, and Stone, I do want you to weigh in on this. It's no secret. So at 2, I'll end up taking Karl-Anthony Towns. But I do want to talk about Booker first. Booker, 2-time All-NBA player, 4-time All-Star. Again, don't really care. Tess kind of had, it's hard to say like a down last couple years necessarily. He's still been averaging, 25 points. He made an All-NBA team 2 years ago. But like last year especially did not feel like a very good year for him. Other than his one season where they made the finals, I do think there's an argument that how much he contributes to winning is still a little bit in question. But I mean, this is the only player to have made a first-team All-NBA team, I believe. He came 4th in MVP voting in 21-22. Probably had the best individual season of any of these players with that 21-22 season. That Suns team was really good. I mean, obviously Chris Paul was a big part of that, but I mean, it's no secret that Devin Booker was the lead scorer on that team, even if I think Chris Paul is probably the lead engine to their winning. I still have my questions on how easy is it to build a true like high level winning team around this guy. But I think that was the mold, right? Where it's like you have a real setup point guard, you have a big who can really contribute defensively and can finish at the rim. Obviously, DeAndre Ayton has had his issues since, but he had a really good year that year. And they've tried to put like these other scores around him and make him a point guard a lot. He's a really interesting player and one that I think has maybe fluctuated in terms of like his ranking amongst shooting guards as much as just about anyone. Like Karl Anthony Towns, for what it's worth, is like always like the fourth best center in the NBA. Like that's just who he's not Jokic, he's not Embiid. When Rudy Gobert is really locked in defensively, he's probably a little better than Karl Anthony Towns. I mean, some of these guys might be coming for him, right, depending on where you would rank him. But he's always been like a top 4 or 5 big, and never quite in that top 3. Versus obviously he's made small NBA teams, but still, I think in a general sense, you would say he's not really been a top 3 big. Versus Booker there's been times where it's like this is easily the best shooting guard in the league. And then this last year, it's like, man, like, are there 4 or 5 better shooting guards? Like, obviously, it's hard to, positions and whatever. But I do think he's had a really interesting career. But I also agree this is the right pick. Stone, do you think Booker at 1 the correct pick?
Yeah, it's who I would have taken. As much as I also love Towns, I think Booker is the right pick here. He's just the better player. This is really the first draft. 2015 was the first draft I paid attention to. As you can hear my dog in the background, hopefully not too bad. But this is the first one I really paid attention to. And Booker was someone that stood out to me. I wasn't crazy high on him. It's not like I had him top 3 or anything, but the shooting was something that always projected. I didn't think it would scale to the level it did in terms of the ability to generate his own shot. I didn't think the ball handling would develop to this trajectory either. Like I thought that was somewhat outlier. But it's made him into being this really complete scorer. Like he's a 3-level scorer, can get to his spots at will. I think being a distributor at points throughout his career has actually been good for his development, even if that's not his full-time role, because I think it has made him a better secondary type guy. And it's now that he has the confidence to be able to fill that role in pinch situations, I think it just makes him all the better in a consistent sort of number 2 facilitator role. I think he's malleable in that way too, where you can play on and off ball. I think Booker is, to me, the ideal offensive shooting guard in the league. Like I just think that he does everything you want offensively out of a shooting guard, and you can't ask for much more. Defensively, there's issues, and I think a lot of that at times has to be with the burden that he's carried offensively. But I'm not sold that he's a plus defender. But this is overall who I would have taken. He's had the best career, I would say, out of anyone in this class. And I think that he is just ultimately the best player from this class. So I agree with the first pick.
Yeah, so let's talk about Cat. Karl Anthony Towns, or as Basketball Reference lists him, Bodega Cat. Never heard that one. He won the Rookie of the Year, right? Was the best rookie of this group. Has made 3 All-NBA teams. As Coop said, I would say comfortably the best big man shooter of all time. And I would also say right now, and this might be a hot take, if I was just drafting for like who is going to be the best in 25, 26, I'd probably take Cat first. Like I think Cat is probably a more valuable player than Devin Booker right now. He is so interesting because he is simultaneously really hard to build high-level teams around and also just like a walking top 10 offense, because it's so rare that you see bigs who are this good offensively who aren't either A, the primary playmaker for their team in a general sense, or B, a defensive anchor. And so because he's not those things, he can be a really hard fit, but he is such a transcendent shooter. He is so excellent beating other bigs in terms of drives and finishes. And he's a competent post-up guy against smaller guys that he is a matchup nightmare. I think he does get underrated because so many people feel however they feel, mostly because of their internalized homophobia in one way or another, about who he is as a person, that they and because just a general sense, like old heads don't like bigs that aren't good at defense, and neither do I in a general sense, right? Like there's all these issues with Cat, but at a certain point, he is this comfortable All NBA player in a lot of ways. He is the type of guy that I still think probably could be the starting big on a championship team. It would just require a lot of creativity. We'll see if the Knicks have that in them. But I mean, we've seen he can contribute to winning. We've seen he can help teams win. He can help teams make conference finals. Again, a lot of people point to like the Jason Tatum injury. The Knicks were going to win that series regardless. Before Tatum got injured, they were about to go up 3-1. The strong bet was on them to just win that series, even if Tatum stays healthy. That's a conference finals team that beats a reigning champion, starting Karl-Anthony Towns at the 5. Like I think that does matter. And so to me, this is an easy pick. It's a home run at 2. I still think this was probably a worthy number 1 pick. I do think it's interesting, and Coop probably has something to say on this too, that he was talked about so much as like a defensive big man as a prospect. When we went back and watched, I didn't see that much at all. Like I just, he has some shot blocking instinct. I think what people really liked about him were his hands. And he's just kind of a big, strong body. But he never really seemed like that to me. Like he always seemed like this kind of skilled big man. He is the idealized version of who the number 3 pick, did not end up being. Where it's like, if Julian Okafor was going to have an NBA career, it would have been being what Karl-Anthony Towns is. Where it's like he has a really good handle for a big man. He can really shoot, and the defense you just kind of live with. The other thing I do think is maybe sometimes underrated about Karl-Anthony Towns, pretty solid rebounder. For as bad of a rim protector as he is, the fact that he can contribute on the boards does help, raise his defensive floor, right? Like that's something that Okafor never had. Okafor was always a bad rebounder. Last year, Karl-Anthony Towns grabbed 12 rebounds a game, almost 10 defensive rebounds a game. Is that everything? No. Like I think rebounding can be an up and down stat in terms of what it represents, but most of the years where he was playing as like the true center, he's been a double-double guy. And that is an important thing for a big guy like this. So do you guys have any thoughts on Cat? And if not, Stone, you are more than welcome to take your 3rd pick.
Can I just talk about his defense real quick? I love Cat. The special sauce for him is he's just an incredible ball handler. I mean, him and Jaren are like 2 of the greatest big ball handlers I've ever seen at just getting downhill from the perimeter and leveraging their 3-point shot. And Cat's like way out of Jaren's league because he's so much stronger and his hand-eye coordination is just so good. The entire sell with Cat defensively as a prospect is block rate. That's it. There's not like when you go back and watch the tape, he's not that special in any other way, right? And he just had a nice block rate. He's a great rebounder. He had great, rebounding rates on both ends. He's good. He was a good player, but like to call him this like strong defensive anchor guy is just to kind of get caught up in the hype of what that Kentucky team was and how good they were and all this stuff. And it's just not. I don't think it's necessarily true. So I don't know. I really like Cat, and he's awesome in the league. One of the best offensive bigs of all time. Stone, hit us with the turn.
Yeah, I'll throw my 2 cents in real quick about Cat, where I think he's extremely underrated. I think I agree that he's probably 4th or 5th best center for the majority of his career, but I would say he's probably been consistently like the 2nd best offensive big throughout his entire career. Maybe probably the 2nd because Jokic exists, but he's the best big man shooter of all time. he's a versatile shooter for how big he is at 2. He's doing side steps. He's not just catch and shoot like a lot of bigs are. He's versatile, could put the ball on the floor, like Cooper said, and at times that has allowed Minnesota, when he was still with them, to play him as a hub. Even like he was legitimately, um, you know, getting from the 3-point line down to the mid post, and then drawing help defenses so that he can operate from the high post as a hub. Like just doing different things that bigs can't do, and he's, I think, pretty much mastered the entire offensive package as a big. Like I don't think Cat offensively has one major weakness that you can point to offensively. And in most cases, like he's really, really strong in any sort of offensive area. Like I think he's, great to elite in most offensive categories and in areas. Defensively is obviously what brings him down, but I don't think he gets talked enough about just how good currently and like the historical precedent of who he is offensively. So that would have been an easy number 2 for me as well. With my third pick, this is, I guess, is probably where it starts getting interesting for a lot of people. I feel like the first 2 picks are kind of not easy, but it's easy to figure out who those 2 guys are going to be in one order or another. I'm going to go with Miles Turner here, I think, at pick 3. I think that he has really developed throughout his career fairly consistently. He's, maybe been the same guy now for the past few years, but I think he really worked hard to add the shooting to his game that I think at points earlier in his career, a lot of people, myself included, really questioned if that would ever be a meaningful part of his game, and it has become that. He's very accurate as a shooter. He's one of the best shot blockers in the league and has been for a while. In totality, defensively, like there's still things that he can be better at, which obviously it's asking a lot at this point in his career to develop a whole lot more. But I think that as purely a rim protector, he's been, top 3, top 2 for a good portion of his career. And the fact that he can really legitimately stretch the floor and not be a fake shooter at this point has really boosted him in my eyes as this guy that I guess ultimately I view as the 3rd best player from this class.
Dude, Turner at 3 over both of the other guys here. Turner is
my big disagreement with you is I think he's slightly overrated as a rim protector. And I
that
think
was what I was going to say. To be fair,
throughout the course of his career, it's just that, and again, I still would have taken him high. I actually had him at 4 on my board here. So I don't think this is like some awful pick, but I just, the highest he ever got in Defensive Player of the Year was 5th. He's never made an all-defense team. So I do think calling him a top 5 rim protector is somewhat, up and down. He did have like a 3.4 block season, but that was also a year where he came in 9th in Defensive Player of the Year. So there's definitely some weird give and take. I think he almost gets overrated as a shot blocker because he gets talked about as like a 3-and-D big. And so people kind of inflate the D. I think he's always been a fine defender, but he's never been the guy that anchors top 5 defenses. The Pacers in his whole career, as far as I remember, have never been a top 5 defense. Their team last year, he was, for a team that made the finals, he was not particularly good defensively. That was a good defensive team based mostly on Aaron Nesmith and the fact that even after made baskets, they were running down the floor. So the other team was just exhausted. So I don't, and so I'll let you give your pushback. I don't hate this pick. I think he's a good player, an easy top 5 guy in this draft for me. But I do think that there's one person that take him over seems a little bit much to me, even though I do think there's probably an argument.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I didn't put too much consideration in the order because I'm at the turn. So like I'm at 3 and 4. So I didn't really consider the fact that this guy is better at 3 than he is at 4. So maybe that's on me. My bad for the listeners, but no, I think that whether it's 3 or 4, like um, he to me is really, I think, the what everyone is looking for a modern day big, and just makes it so easy to build around, right? Like you have a guy that can really space the floor. Um, I think he's a really good rim protector. I know there's disagreement, and I think for me, it's the lack of versatility as a rim protector that because he really is like around the rim guy. He's not someone like Gobert that can suck the entire floor around with him. Um, I think that at the rim, though, he is elite as it gets as a rim protector. And I think that pairing that with the shooting that he has just makes him such an easy guy to build around, and someone that, um, can be a legitimate two-way player within certain aspects. So, um, I'm sticking by it. Obviously, because I'm not taking back in this draft. But unless you guys have more to say, I'll go to my 4th pick. All right, I'm gonna go with Tingus Pingus here at number 4. Um, I I mean, to me, it was 3 and 4 between him and Turner. I didn't put a whole lot of stock into it. The reason ultimately I think I took Turner just in my mind was the injury history with Porzingis. Like I think he's legitimately injury prone, and that would concern me a little bit. But um, yeah, I mean, Porzingis, when healthy, is you know a- as the best shooter of his size in history, probably as a 7'2" guy. Um, that's probably going to change eventually with Wembanyama and other guys, but he's a fantastic shooter. Uh, the rim protection has always been strong. I don't think he has a lot of times where he's in the wrong spots as a rim protector. I think it's always had to do more with just being out muscled for him to be a consistent guy that is able to defend a lot of post ups and things like that. He has added a lot of muscle over the years. Offensively, I think that he's added a lot to his game from when he was even on the Mavericks and was sort of just used, but also to some degree only capable of being put in the corner and being this sort of catch and shoot guy, where I think he's leveled up his game a bit since then. And I think he is someone that can legitimately find his own within an offense and not be someone that is dependent solely on everybody else to be that. And I think that has really taken him to this level of being, uh, an all-star level guy. I won't go quite to all NBA, but when healthy, there's stretches where he does look like that. So, um, yeah, I'm pretty happy with my 3 and 4 here. And again, for people listening, they could have put them in any order. It wouldn't matter too much to me, but I knew I was going to take these 2 players.
Well, that's why we didn't want to do drafting teams right there, because then you'd feel kind of weird putting the same player on your team twice. Except one of them is actually good, and it's not the guy you took at 3. Porzingis, he can really that he's a great shooter. I think the defense as a rim protector, his hand-eye coordination is really good. His timing's really good. He's just bigger than Turner is, and he just gets away with like basically being the same guy but 5 inches taller. Probably like 3 inches taller. I'm probably being a bit exaggerated, but like he's taller, he's bigger, he's got longer arms, and he's got more funk as an offensive player. I think Turner is really kind of a pick and pop merchant and like I can run the floor guy. And Kristaps, especially when he was younger, I mean, that guy could put the ball on the floor, and he still can. He just can't move as well anymore. But back when he was in New York, he played the 4 full time and pretty well, even though that team was really poorly coached. I think Porzingis, he's who I would have taken at 3 if I had the call. I think he's the far better player out of the 2. And I mean, being able to go to Boston and kind of scale back despite a lot of the injury stuff it was cool to see. And I do think the Hawks are going to have some fun lineup potential this season with him there.
Yeah, I like Porzingis a lot. I think this is the right pick, the right place to take him. He's obviously had a turbulent career in some ways, but that's my top four. We've taken my top four. In the top four, like this guy I have at 5 is significantly lower than those guys. Honestly, it sounds like Coop might disagree. And then after that is where I think this really opens up in kind of a bad way. But I'll take D'Angelo Russell at 5. Um, really weird career. Won All-Star game in his 4th season, and everyone thought that he might actually be an All-Star, and that's just not who he is. He's also not a point guard. He's the one of the weirdest, like, he's so interesting because so much of the sell for him was like elite passer out of college. Like you go back and you hear people talk about it, it's like, oh, this is a true point guard who's 6'5", and that's just not who he like. That's not who he is. He's uh, mostly a pull-up shooter who can run an offense, not like some like high-level breaker of the defense or anything. And part of that is that the truth is high-level passers like that in the NBA are just better athletes. You have to be able to create some type of advantage to access those types of passes, and he just can't do that in the NBA the same way. But for what it's worth, he's been on good teams. He has never been a good defender, but he has at least I would say he can contribute to winning. And he has also had times where he is a great, um, elevate your team's floor type player. And so 5 is not that's not where you want to take a guy like that in an average draft. I think this is where we're going to learn that this draft is kind of weak in terms of like the mid to late lottery. But this is, I'd have to look, and this is something I'd be interested to discuss. I feel like this is kind of like an average second overall pick, like where it's like a starter, but not like a high level starter, just like someone who can be on good teams. Maybe you think of a lot of second overall picks being maybe slightly more able to contribute to winning, but like you're not happy with D'Lo at 2, but also you're probably only so upset with D'Lo at 2. I don't know. Really, really interesting players, had a really interesting career. Seems like a great guy. I'm always rooting for D'Lo for whatever reason. But yeah, just never quite had the type of success that I think a lot of people thought he had in him. And he's just too low level of an athlete, probably. Even someone like a Tyrese Halliburton, not only is he a better shooter and a better passer, but it's just a better athlete, and that's a big separator between those two. So, do you guys have any thoughts here on D'Lo before Coop goes at 6?
I have a couple quick thoughts. D'Lo's one of my favorite prospects I had evaluated. Huge fan of him when he was coming out. I fully bought into him as this top tier point guard that he has turned out not to be. But I do think what he currently is still a really talented passer. Like I think he can make these super difficult passes, thread the needle that a lot of guys just can't. The issue has always sort of been to me that he sees things a half a second or a second too late to really make those passes happen. But I think he's capable of throwing these like ridiculously complex passes that a lot of prospects and point guards just can't do. Also accessing those windows, even if he were to see them in time, is difficult considering the fact that he's got really poor burst and just poor lateral movement. So, if those things were better than what they are, I could see him actually being a much different player than he is, like just as this pure point guard who could be that Ricky Rubio type guy. But he's not, and he's had a strange career for sure. But I think there has been enough there to grasp onto as him being a positive NBA player that you can and you can take that with some level of confidence. But he has I think disappointed for sure from the expectations that he had coming out of college.
I think to call him a shooter is the best way to go. Fun fact, actually, I saw his game where he hit 7 threes in a row in the first quarter against the Toronto Raptors. I saw that in person 7 years ago. So that's my big flex for the day. This is where things get really interesting. Who's the sixth best guy in this class is kind of up for debate. But I'm going to go with Norman Powell here at 6. I think he reached the highest highs this last season and just consistently can score the piss out of the ball at all 3 levels. Mega athlete. I mean, he's pretty good, and Toronto has been trying to replicate him and Terrence Ross in a lab for the last 10 years. So I really enjoy his game. He probably could have been an all-star. I don't think I would have taken him over any of the guys who made the all-star team, but he put up all-star level production this last season. And whenever he's had the keys and has really been trusted as a scorer, I think he is kind of that ideal 2 scorer who can really get you a bucket. And he's just so athletic and overwhelming. And I don't think he takes away in as many areas of the game as you would think for his kind of archetype. He's not super well-rounded, but he's well-rounded enough to really survive on playoff teams.
Yeah, you know what I find really interesting about Norm Powell is he's kind of like a diet Devin Booker. Like, I think they're really similar players. Devin Booker is just a slightly better shooter and shot maker and slightly better passer, right? Slightly bigger, right? But they've had like interesting intertwined NBA careers. And for what it's worth, this is the person who has so far most outperformed their draft stock. Obviously, Devin Booker, 13-1 was a pretty big move, but then otherwise it's been fairly close, right? Even Miles Turner, 11-4 is not like a crazy, move. But Norm Powell was taken at 46 outside of the top 45, which is generally considered the cutoff for where you get the good players. One of the many successes of the Toronto development system in the mid 2010s, mid to late 2010s, I should say, has had a really successful, kind of career starting in about 2020. He averaged across 2020, where he played for 2 different teams. He was traded to Portland halfway through the year. He averaged 18 points. Then when he was traded to the Clippers, he's been great for them, including 2, fairly close to winning 6th man of the year seasons. I would argue that he probably should have won one of those. So yeah, I think this is a great pick. This is where I would have gone here at 6, but also that does kind of frame the draft. Norman Powell, not particularly close to an all-star, right? Even though he can get some buckets. Not exactly someone you would consider a super high-level playoff rotation player, right? Could he be? Sure, but he hasn't been yet. And he is a little older than some of these guys, right? This is something that we'll talk about is, he's 32 right now. This year will be his age, I believe his age 32 season. That is, quite a bit older than some of these other guys. And that will matter in terms of if we were to do this again in 10 years when most of these guys are retired. Could some of these guys below him pass him? I'm not so sure. So I think this is a good pick, but I do find it interesting. I'm up here at.
I have one more.
Go. That's right. My fault. Go ahead.
Sorry. I know this is probably Stone's favorite player, so I'll throw this to him right after my selection. The winningest player in the 2015 NBA draft, Kevon Looney, here at 7. Kevon Looney beat the shit out of my team for like 5 years running. I hate him, and I hate his guts, and I hate his game, but you can't deny how good he is. Just so solid at everything you need a big man to do. Perfect for that Warriors system. I think he's going to work out on another team, even though, I don't know why the hell he's on the Pelicans, but he could just grab rebounds. He's tough, good motor, great screener, just everything you need from a role player big. And so that's who I'm going to go with here at 7. Stone, how do you feel about that?
Well, I feel pissed because that was my next pick, but yeah, no, I agree. I don't think it's completely fluky that stat exists, that he's the most winningest player. Like, obviously, he played on historic teams with Steph and Draymond and Clay, but uh, Looney was as much a part of that as anybody else outside of those guys. And I think, for majority of those teams, you could say he was the fourth best player outside of the KD years. So, um, like, he was a big reason for that success level. And I think that, he's been underrated throughout a majority of his career, and he's not the flashiest guy, but he's so fundamentally strong, and just really understands at all times where to be on the court. I think he has some level of just um, reading and court mapping that is sort of off the charts that you just don't see in a lot of centers. And I think that it has allowed him to be have this level of success throughout his career. And from all accounts, like, it seems like he's one of the best locker room dudes in the NBA, and I'm sure that plays a major part of it. So yeah, I like this pick, and this is around the range I'd start considering him as well.
Yeah, you guys are crazy though. The pick should have been DeLon Wright, who I'm going to take here. DeLon Wright, maybe my favorite, like a top 5 player in the NBA for me. I don't know why. Just love DeLon Wright. From Utah, originally the 20th overall pick, so another guy that is kind of successfully improved his draft stock. This is another guy who has just really helped winning a lot, in my opinion. He has not been valued by certain teams in the way I think he should be. Never the most he's ever averaged for a whole season in his career was 12 points. So I understand. Actually, that's not even for a whole season. My fault. 10.4 points. But I don't care. I think he's a great defender. I think he can really pass. This is the type of guy that I think, had he been on better constructed teams in his prime, would have contributed to a lot of winning. Now, he's only barely still in the NBA. Like, just to be honest, he played for 2 teams this year, and he was cut by one of them. He was awful for the Bucks. He shot 26.8% from the field in 26 games for the Bucks, but he was okay for the Knicks, right? I think he was a part of their playoff rotation. I think he's back with them. I'd have to check. I don't know exactly what his contract situation looks like. I'd still bring him in if I was a team. If for nothing else, then I bet money he's a great veteran leader. I wish he could have, if he could have been on a team like the Celtics or something, because he would have really contributed. So I love DeLon Wright. I think there's arguments for other guys here. We're in that range, but I do think I would prefer him over some of the names you're going to start to hear next, which I think are a little bit less interesting. Stone, you're up here with 2 picks. Who you got?
Yeah, both of you are crazy, because as much as I love Looney, I would have taken this guy. I think of both of them. I did not expect him to be here. I'm going to take TJ McConnell, who I think is maybe the best backup point guard in the entire league. He just came off a finals run with the Pacers, where I don't. Once Halliburton went down, he filled in obviously as the starting point guard, and the Pacers didn't lose because of him. Like, I think that just shows this level of winning that you get out of him that I want on my team. I want to win basketball games. That's how I approach all of our drafting every year. Is I want the player who's going to help me win the most games, and I think TJ McConnell is a guy that, if I could pick any point guard as my backup point guard, it would be him. Because not only is he, in my opinion, maybe probably the best backup point guard in the league, but someone I think that could start for a lot of teams currently. He doesn't have that opportunity, or he will now that the unfortunate injury to Halliburton happened. But I think that for a lot of teams, he would be their best point guard because he provides this level of winning. He's tenacious defensively. I just really enjoy watching him play, and I think that he's someone that could really help my basketball team. So I'm surprised he's still there. My second player.
For what it's worth, I do want to jump in really
Yeah.
fast. TJ McConnell's one I have such a hard time with because I do think that there are a lot of teams that he would really struggle on, that I don't know that his career looks the same way it does. And also, again, this is another guy where he's never been a particularly efficient scorer. I guess you would say in the 23-24 season he was really efficient, but he's never cracked into that top echelon of efficiency as a scorer. He is a solid assist guy, but he McConnellizes a game. He is a backup point guard in the traditional sense where he has to have the ball all the time. He's a great defender. He obviously sets a culture. How much of him being a part of a finals run is TJ McConnell being so good, and how much is Tyrese Halliburton being so good, right? I do think sometimes that can get conflated. I like TJ McConnell. This is where I would have taken him. Don't get me wrong. But part of the reason I go with DeLon Wright over him is that I think Wright is more scalable, and at his best was more likely to help a team win a championship than McConnell. Now, for what it's worth, McConnell did prove this last year, something I did not believe for a long time, which is that he can be on the floor in those high leverage playoff games. I kind of thought he was the type of player that would get played off. I still think there's certain situations where certain teams that he could have been on where he could have got played off, but he did answer that question, which is really good, right? And that's a great sign for him. And he is probably a guy that has a couple more solid years left. He's 32. This next year will be his age 32 season. So that's, a good sign for him. And also, I believe this is our first undrafted guy taken. The first of a couple, Looney didn't go undrafted. Yeah, this is our first undrafted guy taken. So anyways, go ahead, so.
Yeah, valid point. He is definitely someone that needs the ball in his hands, but I'm okay with that if it leads to wins. And I'm happy there. So I'll go next on my board with Kelly Oubre, who I think both Bryce and Cooper probably wanted. For watching on YouTube, you can see Cooper's reaction, but this is a really up and down player, from honestly season to season, but really game to game, sometimes half to half. It's you never know what Kelly Oubre you're going to get, but when he's good and he's locked in on both ends of the court, he is really valuable. I think can be a valuable two-way player who is kind of a power wing at times, where he can overpower smaller guys. He can get really hot, hit 7-8 threes a game some nights. Defensively, can really be someone that you can put on the perimeter and feel comfortable about on a night-to-night basis. It varies, though, and that's always sort of been the hang-up with Oubre, is he's just so inconsistent. And it's really difficult for me to take that much higher than I did. But right around here, I feel happy with the value that I would be getting.
Yeah, I would not take Kelly Oubre. Coop, did you have something to add on Oubre?
Just, man, the lack of ability to play on really structured teams is so weird. I think that's such a big part of his variance year to year, is he shows up to a team where he just gets to do whatever, and he is just so free flowing and free playing that works. Like when he came to the Suns that first year and just averaged 20 and was just awesome because it was just free and loose and fast. And then he immediately goes to the Warriors and is awful, just genuinely awful. He's a really strange player. One of my favorite to watch in the whole league. I love his style of play, but I am mad Stone took him because I wanted to get 3 different versions of the same player on my team. But Bryce, take it away here.
Yeah, there's actually 2 guys I would take over Kelly Oubre. And honestly, as I look back on it, I probably would have taken this guy over DeLon Wright, so I apologize. But I'm going to take Larry Nance Jr. here. What I love about Larry Nance Jr. is this is a guy who can play the 4 or the 5, which I still think is super valuable. High integrity, always in the right place defensively, all that stuff. he also makes shots, or he's developed into someone who makes shots. In his prime, he was a high flyer, really efficient inside finisher. He had years where he was shooting 58% from the field while not shooting any threes. And then as his career moved on, he started to shoot threes and make threes. I think he's going to have a good year this year. I think Cleveland signed him. If he can stay healthy, I think he has a really good year this year. I think he can help that team a lot. The question will forever be, can he stay healthy? But this is a guy, he went 27th overall, was an older guy. And I just, from a small school, I believe he went to Wyoming. But this is a guy I've always loved. I love his game. I love his personality, all that stuff. And I just think that a lot of my draft philosophy sometimes comes back to Larry Nance or guys like him. I think about PJ Tucker as well, where it's can this guy play a couple of positions? Can he guard? Can he contribute in some way offensively without being a ball stopper? If the answer is yes to those questions, I think there's a real chance that this is a valuable rotation player. And that's what I like about Wright and about Nance over guys like McConnell, not to keep harping on this, is their ability to play multiple positions raises their floor in terms of the number of teams they could contribute on. And, we're at the point now in our redraft already where that's the discussion, right? Where it's okay, how are we making sure that these guys are, able to contribute, just in a general sense to be on the floor. Larry Nance has basically never been someone who started a lot of games. The most games he started a year is 30. And he's obviously had his injury issues, but he's another guy who's been hurt by he had to spend a lot of slop years on the Pelicans when they were just doing nonsense. But in his limited time where he was healthy with the Hawks last year, I thought he was good. And I think he's going to be good this year. I think he's going to be a real rotation player on a good team. So shout out Larry Nance. Really happy to get him. Coop, you're up with the turn here.
Yeah, I love Larry Nance. I just wish he could play more than 5 games a year and not have his muscles melt off his bones. I would have taken this guy as far back as my last. I don't know if I would have taken him over Looney, but directly after, I'm going to go with Royce O'Neal. Went undrafted, 6'4", kind of undersized for his kind of, he. I hate saying 3-and-D, but he is a 3-and-D guy. I think he's really good on ball. He's a smart off ball player. He can shoot the 3 ball. I like him. I think he's a little overrated for what he is. He's not one of these super Swiss Army knife type defenders, but sometimes you just need a guy like Royce who can go out there and be competent. I think he's perfect for that. He was really good on the Jazz, wasn't bad on the Suns, but was very much overtasked. So I'm going to go with Royce here. Do you guys have any thoughts before I jump over to my other pick here?
Why do you keep taking my players?
Royce is a player I love. Obviously, he really hit with the Jazz. His first season was 2 years after this draft, so he had to go overseas and play for a little bit and really earn his stripes. Love the story. Yeah, probably slightly overpaid, but a classic guy that can contribute to good teams at his best, and is a player that it matters that good teams want him consistently. So, anyways, Coop, you're up again.
Yeah, sorry if you hear any commotion. My dog is very excited. I was kind of debating here. I had somebody else ranked above this guy, but I kind of have to go with Montrezl Harrell here. The ultimate energy guy, was my favorite player on the Rockets for many years. Went to Washington and should have won Defensive Player of the Year for 50 games out of that season, and then got traded to Charlotte and was worthless, useless. Just a guy I love. I will always love guys like that. He was, he was in the running for 6th man of the year with the Clippers. I think guys like this should exist in the league, especially off the bench. I don't know why Montrez isn't really in the league, to be fair, but just guys who really get after it, really give a shit, can come in, on an off night in the regular season and give you, 10-7, a really loud 10-7 to get everyone else going. I love his kind of stuff. Not a great defender, I think, is really the big problem, is that he's like 6'7" and not that good of a defender. But if you're coming off the bench, I think you can scheme something around him to make him more useful than he is. He's got long arms. He's got bounce. I think he became a pretty good drop defender towards the end. It's just played on a bunch of teams that could not execute drop around him. Right. So I think there's worlds where he goes to different teams and he looks a lot better. And this kind of off the bench energy guy, I think, is a lot more valuable than they typically get credit for, at least in the regular season. And honestly, I will take guy who provides plus regular season value over guy who like plays 3 minutes in the playoffs and just does nothing, right? Like over the kind of, who would be a guy like that? Because there's like, they exist every year, but it's the guy who's in the rotation until it reaches game 5. And then it's like, oh, we can't afford to keep everyone,
I mean, it was Chetty Osman for a little bit.
Yeah, it was. So yeah, and I like Chetty enough, but I think Montrez is my guy. I got to trust my heart and go with him here.
I don't hate this pick. Montrez is the first guy we're drafting who is out of the league now. Really bounced around, went to Washington, had a good year, but only played in 46 games. Went to Charlotte, got hurt, and then went to Philly and barely played. And then he got hurt again. Now he's out of the league. I think this is a good pick. Again, for what he was, I think he was great. It was a tough fit, but contributed to winning. I mean, he was good on those Clippers teams, helped them win games. He was not the reason they did not win championships. So I think that's a fine pick. Not necessarily where I would have gone, but not bad at all. All right, I'm up, and I'll take Bobby Portis here. This is a big man heavy draft, like at a tweener heavy draft, where there's a lot of guys that went that it's like, are they a 4? Are they a 5? I don't know. Bobby Portis, I don't love, to be honest. I think he is a really difficult player to fit onto high-level teams, but he has done it before. This is one of the only players in this draft to have won a championship, and that does mean something. He contributed to that team. He's a stretch 5 who can bully some smaller guys, and that's really it. He's really similar to Harrell. The thing he does that Harrell didn't is he shoots, and so he can fit next to centers a little bit better. If Harrell could shoot like Bobby Portis, I think Harrell would probably still be in the league. I don't love Portis, but I think this is a good place for him. And I think it's a reminder that for as much as we talk about, hey, like stretch bigs are kind of fake, and we try to have all these philosophical discussions about it, if you're a stretch big who can do one other thing, whether that be bully, whether that be dribble a little bit, whether that be, make some high-low passes or whatever, you can probably play in the – I mean, Quentin Post was a guy we didn't even scout, and he's going to have at least a 5-year NBA career, I think, because it's like he's a 7-footer who can actually shoot. You can try to guard him with 2s if you want to hide someone, but he can at least kind of post up a little bit. He can set screens, right, and make things difficult if you're going to guard him with other people. Bobby Portis is like a realized version of that. I probably would have taken it above Harrell, but I would not have taken him above someone like Nance, even though he did, like I said, win a championship and has been a rotation player on those types of teams. I still think I prefer Nance as a player and what he can be. But Portis has made a lot of money in the sport by doing his thing. So, Stone, you're up here with the turn.
This is difficult. I'm going to go with Tyus Jones here, I think, with the first pick that I have. Just at this point, I think you're looking for NBA players at this point in the draft now. I feel like Tyus Jones is one. He's been up and down. He, I think, is a really good shooter at times. He's had down years. I'm not as confident in him as being my backup point guard that I would be with McConnell. But I do think that there's a level of confidence that he is just an NBA player. Like I think that he is someone that sticks on an NBA team throughout the regular season, can give you 15 minutes a night, and you're okay with that. And I think that the list of those guys now is starting to run kind of low. And for me, Tyus Jones is maybe the best remaining candidate for that. So if you
I
guys
don't
want
have.
to
Oh, yeah.
go ahead
I'll
and
just
talk
jump
while
in.
I figure out my next pick.
My only thing with Tyus is he's like a worse TJ McConnell, right? He's a rotation guard. He's perfectly fine. Had a couple really good years with the Grizzlies. Has never quite got back to that level. But he's a top 40 guard in the NBA. That's somewhat worthwhile. What I find really interesting about Tyus is that of that national championship Duke team, he's probably had the best NBA career. Just crazy to think about when you think about Justice Winslow and you think about Jahlil Okafor and who that team was built around. For Tyus Jones to have had the best career is kind of interesting. So shout out Tyus for that. Now you can maybe make an argument for Grayson Allen, but obviously he spent a lot longer in college than those other guys. So interesting player in that. He's a guy that, again, I think he could be like the backup point guard on a championship team. Like, I think he is to that level of backup point guard, but he's still just a backup point guard. So we're talking about a good backup point guard at 15, and again, we took another good backup point guard at 9 or whatever we took TJ at. So I think that's kind of interesting. Stone, are you are you ready? You look locked in.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm locked in between two guys. I'm gonna go with one of them and hope the other one drops to my next pick. I'm gonna go with Chetty Osman here. I'll take it. I think Chetty had some pretty nice years throughout his career as a rotation guy. I think he is at times sort of this Swiss Army knife that, especially offensively, that can handle a little bit as like a tertiary guy. Keeps the ball moving really well. He did so in Cleveland, but then also San Antonio this last season. He has good moments of shooting. And obviously, if you're this level of player you're just looking for rotation players, you're going to at this point have inconsistent careers. Like that's just comes with the territory. And that's what Chetty has been. But at times he's looked the part of a top 8 rotation player. And I think that for me, that's worthwhile taking at this point in the draft. I'm since he was drafted, I've tried to get the name to stick, the nickname on Basketball Reference. He's the Turkish Jonas brother because he looks like one. It hasn't stuck yet, but maybe this will be the podcast to get him there, and I'll have some Basketball Reference name fame to my name.
Stone, I love you. This is way too high for Chetty Osman. He was not in the league last year. His best season, 2018-19, which was that LeBron's last year in Cleveland? Or was that the year after he left? I don't know. But he fell off quick. Was not particularly good in his last year at with the Spurs. Could he have maybe got another contract in the league? Maybe. I think there's still a good number of good players, or at least solid players left. And so I'll take Terry Rozier here. I think I don't like Terry Rozier that much, but he is a comfortably better NBA player than Chetty Osman. I think that his eccentricities sometimes outweigh the fact that he was just like a solid, fine NBA player. Like, I think we should not forget that this is a guy who earned like a contract for a lot of money. What was he a little bit overpaid? Sure. But at a certain point, in his best years, he was averaging, 20 points, 19 points, 21 points for Charlotte. He goes to Miami, he averages 16.4 points. And even last year, when he was not particularly good, he comes off the bench. He still averaged 10.6 points. He's still shot not a great percentage last year, I guess. He's kind of an inefficient shot chucker. He's not really a point guard. He's a little bit of an aura farmer, but he can ball a little bit. And at a certain point, at his best, he was an okay defender at the point of attack too. Like he is, to me, comfortably better than someone like a Chetty Osman. There are a couple other guys I probably would have taken too. And there was one other guy. I'm interested to see if Coop takes him. There was one other guy I was really considering here. But at a certain point, if we're talking about, hey, we're just looking for NBA players, I mean, this is a guy who has averaged 20 points across multiple seasons, including on one team that made the play-in. So, don't you forget it.
It doesn't count if it's in the East, man. You gotta remember that. That's not a real sport.
I mean, I don't love Terry Rozier, but he is an innings eater, right? And you could squint and talk about this being someone who is like a backup guy who plays quite a few minutes in the regular season, and then when the playoffs come, his minutes shrink drastically. There's a world where that could have happened. Now, he's also got super overpaid, and because he got overpaid, people have turned on him completely, and I think they've forgotten kind of who he was. Now, is there an argument that if he wasn't on that big contract, he'd be out of the league? Maybe. Like, there's all these things, but I do still think this is probably the right spot for Rozier. Coop, you're up here with the turn.
I think what we learned is Bryce has no basketball morals or ethics whatsoever. I cannot physically look at Terry Rozier and say, I want this guy on my team. It's just, it goes against everything I believe in, but it's fair enough. I mean, he's probably a more talented player than Chetty.
I don't think you have to say probably. I think we can just say that he is a more talented player than Chetty. There's a championship winner still left here. Guy who played in the rotation of a championship team for real. Even if he's really dumb and he's kind of bad and he's white. Give me Pat Connaughton here. He started for that team for way too long. He had no business playing that many minutes for a team that was actually successful. And I'm happy to scoop him up. He's athletic. He just gets out there. He tries hard. I don't love his game, but guy who was like actually a contributor to multiple playoff runs, a title run, that speaks to me at some level. So do you guys have anything to say before I hit my second pick here?
Should have stuck to baseball.
Yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to like Pat Connaughton. He, like you said, he's contributed to championship teams, so I can't take that away. I think some of that is poor team building on the Bucks' part more than it is his contributions. But go ahead, Coop.
I'll take the player who I actually thought I think he had a higher high than Connaughton did, and his biggest claim to fame is getting signed and traded for Jimmy Butler. I forgot his name. Give me Josh Richardson here. A guy who should be so much better than he actually is maybe the original victim of Heat voodoo magic. But those years on the Heat, really solid. I mean, kicked butt, could really shoot the ball as a young guy, kind of floated around the league, was up and down he's still been able to shoot no matter where he's been, but it's been up and down with minutes. And I think he's had some injury stuff, but solid, 6'5", can knock down the three ball and can sometimes give you a little bit more. At this point, that's a guy worth taking.
Yeah, I was going to take Josh Richardson next, but go ahead. So,
I had no idea where to take Josh Richardson because I don't know how much to pin it on the fact that he was a Heat voodoo magic or a Heat player versus just being a good player. Like I don't know where that distinction comes in for him. He had some moments outside of the Heat, I think, with the Spurs on occasion, and then had a couple, up and down seasons even on the Heat. But yeah, I didn't know where to value that in this class. But I think it's at this point, you can pretty much just take whoever and not feel too bad about it.
Yeah, fair enough. I like Josh Richardson. He's another guy where I think had he maybe hit teams at the right time, could have had a slightly better career. He was kind of on those very middling, like Hassan Whiteside, Goran Dragic, Heat teams, and then he was on a Philly team where he was okay but disappointing. he was just never that good offensively. Like, he was always a really good defender, and people thought he was like a 3-and-D plus guy because he could kind of dribble. He was like a bad McCall Bridges, and that's why he's not in the league anymore. But I liked him, and I wish he could still stick around. But he only played 8 games last year, and he's now out of the league. But I think that's a perfectly reasonable pick. Again, we're getting into some kind of nasty territory. I'm between two guys, neither of which I particularly like, but I think I'm going to go with the player who, again, has earned a solid contract in the league, and who's I believe now out of the league, but still has like had his moments. I'll take undrafted free agent Christian Wood here, just because, again, he's earned some money in the league. I would say he had a better career than the likes of guys he's closer to, a Willie Cauley-Stein or a Frank Kaminsky. Like, he's had a better career than those guys. How much better is a question, but yeah, that's where I'm at with it. So, Stone, you're up here at the turn. Coop, what picks are these going to be? What pick did I just take?
You just took pick 20.
Man.
And I do have to jump in real quick because we talked about Christian Wood. Christian
Can't
Wood
keep
is
defending you, Bryce.
Christian Wood is someone I would not affectionately describe as the best worst player of all time, because he's, as far as like worst players in the league, he's very good. But I do think he was genuinely the worst player in the league for a large chunk of time. This is a guy who is one of the most talented human beings on planet Earth. It has some of the best hand-eye coordination I've ever seen in anybody. He can shoot the ball. His touch is incredible. His floater is great. He's got great hands, super athletic, super bouncy, and just did not give a single shit about anything. Had the lowest motor I've ever seen, could not defend, did not try. There was nothing that this guy, like, he did not care about basketball. He wanted to take heat checks and, Aura farm. And that was literally all he wanted to do. He didn't want to play basketball. He wanted to shoot the shit and have fun. And I despise him as a basketball player.
Sounds like it.
He ruined my life for like 3 years. So I was really happy when we traded him. Yeah, he stinks. So sorry to step on your spot, Stone.
Nope, you summed it up. It's going to get rough. I'm going to go with Juan Toscano Anderson here, who, it's hard to say that he's a really valuable NBA player outside of those Warriors teams. How much of it was him? How much was the Warriors? The world may never know. I'm just kidding. They do. It was the Warriors, but he played a pivotal role that they had him in, that they were able to create for him. And I think that as a role player did well. Outside of that system, he was not able to shoot whatsoever. That's why he's not in the league. And he's just not a very good athlete. But fundamentally, such a Stone player, also Mexican. So that's a massive plus because look at many fellow Mexican, I should say that because people will see this and think, why do you care about that so much? But he, I think, is a good representation of Mexico. And I think a player that fundamentally I just love watching play. If you guys have any thoughts, you can give them. If not, I have another pick.
Viva la Mexico.
Viva la Mexico. And I will go with Mario Hezonja here, who, if you are not paying attention to, Real Madrid, he has played a big role for them. I think he is one of the, I don't want to say one of the best, but a top 30 or so player that is not currently in the NBA. From my perspective, like, he should be on an NBA roster. Like, I think he's better than a lot of NBA players currently. He's had good national team moments for Croatia, and someone that I think playing at one of the best teams in the world that is not in the NBA, and being a real pivot point for them, a real pillar for that team, I think speaks volumes. And I would comfortably have him for a lot of teams as my 10th or 11th man. So I'm going to go with Hazonia here.
For what it's worth, I agree with you that Hazonia is probably good enough to be in the league, though he's kind of in that weird mold where he's not quite good enough at any of the role player stuff to be a role player, but he's not quite a good enough star level guy to be like a star in the NBA. So I understand why he's not. But I like Hazonia. I actually think his defense over the course of his career was underrated. He was just always like a horrendous offensive player, and he started to figure out like how to be an okay offensive player. But yeah, it's probably too late for him now. But love Hazonia.
He did also dunk on LeBron and block him.
And block him and stare him down. Never forget. New York Knicks legend. Shit.
It gets tough, man.
I'll take Rashawn Holmes. It's between him and one other of Karl Anthony Towns' former teammates. Not that Rashawn Holmes was, I don't think. What Rashawn Holmes went to like Bowling Green or something. Yeah, I mean, he was the 37th overall pick. He's had an okay career. He's still in the league, actually. Was okay for Washington last year. 64.7% field goal percentage, 66.2% at the rim. Excited for Rashawn Holmes, I suppose. Love his little push shot floater. Some okay 2-foot bounce. Is a fine offensive center over the course of his career. Even had a couple years where you would say he was pretty good. I mean, 2020, 21, he averaged 14 points for the Kings. I don't know. Another guy that can't really stay healthy, but not a horrible basketball player. Coop, you got the turn here.
Yeah, Rashawn, I love JTA and Hazonia, but there were two real NBA players who I couldn't justify taking him over, and the other one is Cam Payne, one of the weirder players in all of the NBA. Ugly ass jumper, can just shoot the ball, can get to his spots. He tries, he hustles. I really like Cam Payne a lot, and I'm going to take, unless you guys have something to say, I'm going to take my second guy here. Guy who I believe should still be in the league, and especially should after his national team showing last year, Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, one of the better defenders, not in the league, just another guy who is unfortunately 6'7" and can't shoot. Rondé, I mean, was incredible. Did he play for Jordan? Is he Jordanian? Okay. He was incredible for their national team. I really think he deserves a second shot back in the league. I really loved him on Brooklyn. Just a guy who can really defend, can really switch, plays his butt off, really cares. I think these kinds of guys who just like actually have elite skills and can maybe give you three actual minutes, not like 3 filler minutes, but like if you need somebody to go in and play hard defense against Cade Cunningham in a playoff game, you can throw Rondé out there for like 3 minutes and probably not get destroyed in those minutes if that's what you really need in that moment. And these kind of gadget guys, I do think deserve to be on the back end of rosters over guys who will never be good at anything. So, Bryce, you're back up here.
Yeah, I mean, the real truth of why like RHJ and a lot of these guys won't get reps again is just because teams would rather take bets on those guys being younger and hope that they hit on a Royce O'Neal rather than taking 32-year-old Rondé Hollis-Jefferson. But I agree with you in a general sense. I'll take Trey Lyles. You took Cam Payne with your first pick, right? So Trey Lyles, he's still in the league. This is the last player I believe we will draft who is still playing NBA basketball. Trey Lyles still kind of young. He's this year will only be his age 30 season. Was bad in Utah, had one good year in 21-22, and has been okay in Sacramento since. He's a fine, like, rotation forward, wing, big, whatever you want to call him. He averaged 20 minutes per game this year, only shot 34% from three, which is a worry, right? He's got to be a better shooter than that. But as a 4 rotationally, he's fine. He can make he's kind of a nice story. We probably should have actually gone a little higher just looking at his career in the context of some of these other guys we've taken. Because he's kind of a nice story, right? Like he never really figured it out in Utah, never really figured it out in Denver, even though he actually had 1 year where he put up some points. Was really bad for the Spurs, probably was like on the verge of being out of the league. He goes to Detroit, is pretty good in Detroit. Then goes to Sac, and he's had a comfortable career down in Sacramento. I don't think this is a guy that would look good on a team that was really trying to win. But for these kind of mediocre teams, he's an okay rotation forward. So that's all I got with him. Stone, you're up here.
How many? What pick are we on?
These are your last 2 picks.
Okay, screw it. I'm gonna go with Vincent Poirier, who I think is
Poitier.
I'm going to go with Vince, who I think is a lot of fun to watch. I think that he had a cup of coffee in the league, I think, for maybe half a season, maybe a season. I think as on the French national team, and I forget where he currently plays for, but he's had success overseas, and I think is someone that is – at this point, I don't feel like there's any NBA players left. To be honest, I don't think anyone that will be picked from here on out should be on an NBA roster. But he's, I guess, one of the better overseas players that I see available. So I'll go with him. My second pick, this is not easy. I shouldn't be spending too much time on this. I will be taking with my last pick of the draft, Justin Anderson, who I think had real parts of his NBA career that were successful. And I think is actually like someone I might have misspoke earlier who could crack an NBA rotation at times for certain teams still. I think he is a solid defender. Really inconsistent on the offensive end, but this is someone that was, I think, at times like a real rotation player in the NBA, and someone that currently overseas is a real rotation player, especially defensively. So I'm taking Justin Anderson, and there is no record of me ever taking a different player with this pick. This was always the pick I wanted. So Justin Anderson, I hope you feel honored.
Justin Anderson, notably not in that list of guys I was talking about, nor do I think he's necessarily worth editing over a JP Tokeno pick, because Justin Anderson, for what it's worth in his career,
you just don't care enough, Bryce. Okay,
the most he ever played, most games he ever played in 1 year was 75 games. He averaged 7 points on 49% effective field goal percentage that season.
He was a good defender.
Sure. He was just never particularly good, in my opinion. Unlike Kaminsky was never particularly good. I think there's actually one of these players who had like 2 years where he was kind of good before flaming out. I'm interested to see if Coop takes him. This is my last pick, Coop.
Yeah.
I'll take Frank Kaminsky. Nothing special as a career, but I think we'll see if Coop takes the other guy I'm thinking of. I think there's really 2 guys left here that are worth like anything in the NBA in terms of like having any type of career. For what it's worth, Kaminsky had a couple solid years in Charlotte and not a ton else. Had one okay year in Phoenix. But stretch big, right? Like actually big. I don't know. It was between him or one other guy, and the other guy also had a really disappointing career Frank Kaminsky never got overpaid like the other guys. So, Coop.
Wait, really quick.
Are you talking about Willie Cauley-Stein?
No, I'm talking about Cauley-Stein, I guess, is had a borderline NBA career. There's really three guys here who you would all call busts, between Cauley-Stein, Kaminsky, and actually two other guys, I would say. So four total guys here. You would call them all busts, but they all kind of played in the NBA and kind of got second contracts beyond their rookie season. Like Kaminsky played 8 years, 7 years in the NBA. Two of these other guys played 6 or 7 years. Willie Cauley-Stein played 7 years. So all these guys are like, they got a chance past their rookie contract, and it just didn't work out after that. So we'll see who you take here, and then I'll kind of say some of those other names as we round it out.
Well, so I'm gonna do a little bit of a spiel here and give some of the guys who I would like to take over my pick. I want to take Briante Weber for love of the game. I want to take Kiefer Sykes also for love of the game. I want to take Sam Decker, my dad's least favorite basketball player, and I want to take Alfonso McKinney, who was like the most mid to awful player of all time. But I feel like I have to go with Emmanuel Mudiay here as my 30th pick. A guy who was genuinely electric in his own way, if not good. Just a talented scorer. For someone who hates these kinds of inefficient scorers, my entire draft pick, all of my picks are electric scorers who aren't really that good at basketball. But this class is kind of special for that. So I'll go with Mudiay here.
Yeah, not the guy, but I think interesting. Maybe had the best single year of the guys. But the guy I was talking about was Justice Winslow, who obviously now notorious bust, but did make some real money. Had multiple seasons where he averaged double digits in points while being an okay defender. Never got over the efficiency hump, which is the biggest issue. He's been out of the league now for a couple of years. But he is probably the guy that was most deserving of that second contract he got. Mudiay actually never got a true second contract. He kind of floated around on minimums. I think Kaminsky was kind of the same way. Justice Winslow got a real second contract as the 10th overall pick. The Heat gave him real money. It was bad money, but still. For what it's worth, some of the other guys that we did not take that are at least worth maybe mentioning. Quinn Cook, okay career as an undrafted guy. Stanley Johnson, on that borderline of bust versus played 5+ years in the league. Justin Anderson actually did put in the bust category because he didn't play 5 true seasons in the league. Willie Hernan Gomez. This is a poll, Coop. Travion Graham played 5 seasons in the NBA. And then as for bust, I mentioned Justin Anderson, Sam Decker, the notorious one, Jahlil Okafor, Rashad Vaughn as the 17th pick, Jerian Grant, who was the 21st pick, I believe, Jarrell Martin, Nikola Milutinov, who never even came over, RJ Hunter, Chris McCullough, all first-round guys that did not get second contracts or did not even finish out their first contract. That's part of it with Justin Anderson too, is that he didn't even finish out his first contract with the team that drafted him. I think his third-year option was declined. Obviously, this has been a long process, and I'm sure people have wanted to skip through this last probably 15 to 20 minutes because we're just drafting people that they don't give a fuck about. But I do want to get your guys' takeaways. First, do you guys think, as we look back, is this a historically awful draft? Is it an okay draft? Is it a bad draft? Where do you guys think this falls on the rankings of drafts that we're going to talk about in terms of top end, in terms of depth? How do you guys feel like this draft will end up falling?
I feel like this will be the worst draft that we do a redraft of. The worst draft of the decade, I guess, is the way to frame it. And I don't think there's a lot of depth to it really at all. I think that's the big thing. There's at the top, you have a solid handful of those 5 guys that are around all-star level or higher in some cases. But then I feel like after there, it's a real stark drop-off of guys that you're just really framing as rotation players, and in some cases are not. And a lot of the guys that even we took in the lottery or after the top 5 are probably not in the playoffs for significant amounts of time. So I don't think this is a particularly good draft. I don't think it's historically bad. I'm sure there's precedent for worse drafts, but off the top of my head, I feel like this will be the worst draft that we talk about. I did see we let one NBA player slip, which is Javonte Green, but he was undrafted. But not like he's shooken up the NBA a ton. So, but yeah, those are my closing thoughts, I suppose.
I don't think this class was that bad. I mean, it's better than like 2013. I like it more than it may be a hot take, but I think I like it more than the one we'll talk about next time. I really think that Booker and Cat is a really great top 2 that most drafts don't really have like a claim to fame of those 2 levels of guys. I mean, if we get to 2019, that class has like Tyrese Halliburton and then 15 different busts in the first round. Like I think it's slightly below average as far as draft quality goes. If a draft is like this and it has 2 great players at the top, a few other solid players, I think just that middle tier of guys just doesn't exist in this class, right? And that's kind of the problem with it. It has an interesting top 6, and then everybody else is like a late first rounder. There's no, I feel good about this guy in the back end of the lottery. I feel good about this guy at 15 or 16. And that's a really tough spot for a class to be in.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm interested to see how different the starter list will look like, because mathematically, I don't think it makes sense for all these drafts to really only have produced, 9 players we consider starters, but also there's a lot of bad teams that start guys who are not very good. And so that is something I'm interested to break down. Let us know what you guys thought. If you thought this was an interesting exercise, if it was worthwhile to go back. For what it's worth, I do think we'll have a lot of drafts that have better top 2s. I mean, the truth is this top 2 is as solid as they are. Neither of those guys are like comfortably top 5, even top 10 players in the NBA. Like, I don't know that. I mean, Booker's maybe close to top 10, but I wouldn't say he's comfortably, obviously, a top 10 player. So really interested as we continue to move forward, to continue to talk about these guys, where we'll go. We'll be doing the 2016 draft, hopefully in about a week. We'll hopefully have these kind of rapid fire ready to go out for you guys. And then, right as we're finishing this, we'll probably be right about the time where we're doing our NBA preseason talk quickly. And then, that might interrupt some of this. And then we'll be preparing for the college basketball season. And hopefully you guys are enjoying this and sticking with us, even though we're not doing the full breakdowns. I thought this was interesting. This is something I've wanted to do for a while. Even if we never get to like the 2020 and on draft, I think it's interesting to just go through these, drafts where these guys have somewhat solidified careers and talk about, where they're at and what can change and everything. So for Coop, at Ali_Hoop_Coop, for Stone Out Report_Court, I'm at Bryce_14. Make sure you give us a like, rating, review. If you're on YouTube, like, subscribe, leave a comment. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know if I'm really dumb for picking DeLon Wright so high. Whatever tickles your fancy. I really enjoyed this. This has been the Upside Swings NBA Draft Podcast. We hope later ceiling. Thank you.
Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, one of the better defenders, not in the league. Just another guy who is unfortunately 6'7" and can't shoot, but tries really hard.
How tall?
6'7".
All right, we're cutting this out.
Okay. That'll go in
you
the
guys
end.
realize
I
teach middle schoolers how to deal with that shit.
I forgot about that. See, it's really funny to Stone and I, because we don't have to deal with children who find it like obnoxious. We find it funny for ironic reasons. But
I am going to go, you know what, for old time's sake, I'm going to go with JP Tokoto here, who I loved as a prospect. He had a good career in Israel, and, not that that's a plus nowadays, but, fun player. That's all I'm going for at this point. He was a fun player.
Stone, how do I spell that last name?
Tokoto.
Yeah, fun player.
All right.
I don't care
this my
anymore.
last-
There's no NBA players left. I don't want to mess it up too much. Can I retract my Tokoto pick and take someone else?
Sure.
Can you edit that?
You want me to edit it in as a real pick?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, as a real pick.
I'll put all of this in at the end then, and we'll
Okay.
pretend that you didn't take Tokoto.
Yeah, JP Tokoto did not get picked.